Physical Services Committee. Let's get physical.
John, did you get that?
Oh, yeah.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. I'm going to move on to our resolution, appointing a member of the Landfill Management Oversight Panel, Office of the Legislator. Just to give you a little background on this, I had a discussion with the county executive Monday, and there seems to be a difference of opinion on who should be on the oversight panel. My feeling is that I felt one of the legislators should be, and as chairman of the Physical Services, I put my name up to be on the panel. But the county executive would like to have the county treasurer, Sean, to be on it. So, in saying that, Matt would like to have the floor for a couple minutes to speak on that.
Yeah, as we've all known, this tackling the issue of solid waste and basically in a 3-month period, 4-month period has been quite a task. I'd be happy to share our lengthy to-do list for the next 3 weeks with anyone here. We have quite a bit to do. So things have been moving pretty fast. We do at some point need to talk about A, how we make this appointment, and B, who the appointment is. As Terry said, there is some concern on both of our ends. I think both valid, that we have some representation from the legislature, but also given that Montgomery County is taking the lead on post-closure, I feel that our county treasurer should be there to be explain and defend the county should financial matters come up when we're being questioned by the other 2 counties. So, but at the same time, I think the legislator Veniac's concern is that the oversight panel includes a legislator. So the IMA that was passed by this board, I believe at the end of last month, there's some talk about amending it. I think we look to moving this, if you so choose, for the full board's consideration at the end of the month, knowing that this might not be the final version. I think the compromise that we hopefully will be able to come to is that we have 2 members on the oversight panel, one being either a legislator or the chairman of Public Services or General Services Committee, as well as the county treasurer, just because I think we are going to be billing the other 2 counties for services rendered and expenses. I think our treasurer should be there to back up why we're billing and provide that rationale. And we also need to have a little bit more of a discussion, I think, on the nature of the appointment, whether or not this is an executive appointment or legislative appointment. I don't think we're there yet as far as having an agreement on that, which is fine. We just have a little bit more to work through there. But again, because this is a timely matter, this is something we need to consider moving forward. So that's pretty much where I stand on that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you folks might have.
I'll second the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Just a comment.
Legislator Clackwoods.
Just a comment. I don't know. I probably maybe in a different light, not so much with landfills, but deal in 10 or 12, maybe 15 counties in the state, and I guess what I'm looking at is I understand totally what the county executive's asking for, as far as Sean wanting our bean counter at the table, if I could. And most counties have that person there automatic, whether they're an appointed person or not. So if you guys come to an agreement, let's say that Terry served, if that's what it was, there's nothing preventing us from having him at the table, I don't think. Right?
No,
I mean, in
it's,
that agreement, there would be nothing preventing us from having Sean with him and by his side. I'm just saying, if it ended up being a legislator, I would actually say I think it would be a great idea to have him there, but I don't think anybody's opposed. You're just talking about the representation from the body itself,
Right.
because of the way that it's at. With the, I think what you're saying is with the other two counties, it's the chairman of the board.
Me and Matt, well, obviously, we worked out the compromise between me and Sean, but the second part of this is we still haven't come to a decision on whose appointment this is. So I guess I'll have to refer to Doug. Can I move this to the full board without knowing whose appointment this is? Can-
Yes, sure,
Okay.
sure.
And could we decide it by the time we get to the full board?
In the absence of, the executive referred to the possibility of amending the agreement to provide for two such positions.
Okay.
I would recommend, quite frankly, that if the agreement is going to change, that the agreement itself also change in terms of specifying who makes the appointments, because right now it doesn't.
Right.
And I'm not so sure that we could quote-unquote decide between now and 2 weeks from now on something that really would be an interpretive matter that would go to our charter, as most everything does.
Okay.
So if in fact, and I'm learning this now, that if they're talking about expanding this to have an additional person on there, that the language of the agreement itself, cleaning that up and designate, it just says each county shall designate. And that's easy for Schoharie and Otsego counties because they only have each one branch of government. We have two.
Okay.
And this doesn't spell that out. And you had mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago about the idea of providing for that in here,
Right.
but you wouldn't provide it for just one county. So that sounds like a plan, actually, having just learned that this was a question this afternoon.
So I can move forward with the resolution to the full board?
If that's what the committee chooses to do, sure.
And the resolution, Barbara?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The question I also have is if we don't have all of the solidified answers at the full board, we could table it for 1 month.
You could.
Until we have more clear answers as to the other two counties after they pass their post-closure intermunicipal agreements as to the two. And the other thing I wanted to point out, if I could, instead of putting the chairman of Public Services Committee, could we put, if we decided to, the legislator of the choice of the body of legislators? Because
And also, I would like to add to that, if the term would coincide with the legislative term. Yes,
What's the
Martin.
timetable for this? We can't be tabling.
I was just gonna bring this up. We're gonna be hopefully, we were hoping to do it at the end of this week, but we're gonna be meeting with the other two counties probably in the beginning of next week. So we should have a better idea. The issue is, right now, is there's just been so many moving parts with folks figuring out their transfer station operations, figuring out the post-closure, like the to-do list that I referenced, that we're hopefully gonna get together at the beginning of the week and we'll have these answers. You know, it was the understanding the last time we met that it was gonna be the 3 county treasurers. Since then, it has changed, and we're hearing different things from the other counties, but we haven't had the chance to sit down at the table and actually hash that out. So, so that's one issue. I do think we would like to get this taken care of by the end of the month. That would be preferable on our end. And I don't see any reason why we can't, because we should have a whole lot more information for you by the beginning of, I don't think we're gonna have any issue at all amending it to have the two, where we're gonna have to really, the rubber's gonna meet the road, I think, is on the nature of the appointment, and we'll take it from there.
Mr. Chairman, can we hear a little bit more about this purpose of this oversight panel? What do you anticipate their work to be?
Well, it's it's an interesting situation for us because we're taking the lead. I'm trying to put myself in the situation of some of the other counties, and I think after Terry and I's discussion, I've been able to do that. Really, it's to oversee the post-closure manager, which would be our DPW commissioner, and keep each county up to speed on the financials and any decisions that have been made in regards to post-closure on a regular basis. It's not necessarily, I mean, I was under the impression it was more administrative in the beginning, but it's a balance. It's a little less administrative and more oversight, and it's more for the other two counties. We're going to know exactly what's going on because we're operating it in-house. This panel was designed to keep all three counties up to speed on exactly the meat and potatoes of what's going on with our post-closure work. How much leachate we're hauling, what that's costing us, do we make improvements based on engineering studies at some of our sites to try to reduce the leachate? Do we have adequate, machinery? Do we need to make updates to machinery? Are there an emergency? That type of stuff.
Just to follow through though, since ultimately you're going to be charged with the responsibility here. So we're not going to be doing the closure ourselves. You're going to be doing that from your side. Don't you need some of these other firmed up connections, perhaps with the controller? Would you feel like you had more control over that situation? I'm just trying to say that in charging you with responsibility or accepting responsibility,
Yeah.
I'd like to see you have the tools to do the job.
Yeah, and that's why it was such a, in speaking with Legislator Beniak, I was very firm on my commitment that the county treasurer needed to be on this panel. And I think we're at the point where we're there, and that's what I was looking for.
Compromise is nice, but if it has to be one or the other.
If it has to be one or the other, I stick with my feeling that it has to be the county treasurer. That's my feeling.
Thank you.
Legislative Quackenbush.
This oversight committee is not really a decision-making body, right? I mean, if a decision needs to be made, I would assume that this oversight committee is going to make a recommendation. I'm just going to throw something out there. We have to come up with a different way to haul leachate. I don't know. Think about it. So Sean, Terry, whoever, pick a card, any card. Whoever's sitting at that table with the other two are probably going to come up with some sort of recommendation to bring back to the three partnering counties. Am I on target?
You are, but the key difference here is that Montgomery County is taking the lead. So I think we are in a unique situation relative to the other two counties that we have to be able to back up and defend the decisions that we made. So that's why it's who is there is pretty critical to me. So for example, if a legislator only is on there and there becomes an issue of, well, why did you do this? I would like someone who's involved in that day-to-day operations to be able to answer that question because I think they might be better suited to provide that answer.
No, I get that. My question is, forgetting about who it is, that body doesn't have any authority to make a decision, to spend our money,
Correct.
or do they?
No, you're correct in that.
So, in order for them to spend the taxpayers' dollars in Montgomery County, they'd either have to come back to you, or county executive, or the legislature, or, right?
And those decisions, and correct me if I'm wrong, but those decisions would fall under our post-closure manager, which would be our commissioner. Which, I obviously oversee.
Right, and then in order to get money from us,
Correct.
we would have to make, if we're talking just money dollars and cents, we'd have to make a transfer, or we would have to appropriate.
Correct.
Legislator Weiss.
Now, with the situation we're in, that the county is going to be running this post-closure plan, won't the, just a question, won't the treasurer be dealing with all the financials day to day since we are managing it?
Both the treasurer as well as an additional staff member. Yeah.
So the treasurer will be involved one way or the other.
Yeah, which is the reason why he would be the person best suited to explain to the other two counties what exactly is going on with their money, whether it be the 40% from Otsego or the 18% from Schoharie, because they're gonna, I'm sure they're not just gonna, they're gonna wanna keep a close eye on things, and I wanna be able to make sure that we keep that relationship positive and we have the answers for them when they need them.
Okay,
I'll second.
and the resolution,
Wait. Terry Spencer and Ryan
Oh,
seconded.
sorry.
Sorry.
okay. Now, could you read back the resolution? Or?
Well, you all have the resolution. I guess my question is the resolve going to now say for the full board, the Montgomery County Legislature hereby appoints blank and leave it blank until the full board?
No, it'll be my name. And
Chairman of Physical Services?
no, just
Terry Beatniak?
legislator Terry Beatniak.
Okay.
To serve, the term to serve to coincide with the legislative term. Okay,
Can we
can,
put a date in it, Doug, to reflect like December 31st, 2016?
Yeah, you could certainly do that through, December 31st, 2016, assuming it, I guess we're recognizing it may change again between now and the time it's actually adopted, but as far as moving it,
so,
Is the floor still open for discussion?
no. Can we move it to the full board? Okay,
What'd you say about discussion?
I was asking if the floor was still open.
I said no. We're gonna move it to the full board? Is everybody fine with that?
No.
For the committee people?
the only thing I point out is that you're moving it with language other than the way that it was initially sponsored. If that's all right with the sponsor, which is yourself, of course, and the second, that's okay, but the last line of it, or the resolve, rather, I mean, if you're gonna put your name in, it's a change to the language as it's presented on the
Okay.
agenda.
Okay.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, he says okay.
Okay. So can we move it to the full board? Everybody agree?
Yeah.
No? Okay. It passed, correct? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second? Barbara?
Roy? You're welcome. Okay. like to call the Personnel Committee meeting to order. First thing, is there anything under discussion? Okay. The first thing we'd like to discuss under discussion is the CSEA contract. I have had the privilege to be part of the negotiation team, which went wonderful. Being a part of the former Board of Supervisors, it was an absolute pleasure to be a part of this team effort and to work with the employees, the executive, in this labor negotiation. So I think we've disseminated some of the information. We may have to go into executive session because this isn't public knowledge. But if there's any specific questions about the contract, but if there's anything that's just a common question right now or anything basic that I could answer, or questions, feelings, yes?
Wait a minute. We're on discussion, but when you handed us a resolution,
Yes, well, yes, I'm gonna get to that. There,
just saying, you handed us a resolution, are we discussing that, or are we discussing?
well, if everything goes forward, there is a resolution that can go forward for the full board. The resolution was, the contract was passed by the CSEA, bargaining by the members. So if it passes by this board, it will go forward to the full board. Did you have any other questions, or we?
Well, obviously, there was a,
Close it now. If there's no other questions, then I can propose this resolution, yeah.
well, I guess
Continued.
there was a memorandum of understanding, I assume the two negotiating committees had
Right.
a document that they signed agreeing on something.
Right, correct.
Where's that?
You have it.
You have it, do you not have it? That was given to all of the legislators, the MOA. I can give you my copy if you'd like.
I'm looking at your desk now
Yeah,
for the first time.
Legislator Weiss.
If we need a sponsor for this resolution to go into further discussion, I would.
You'll
I would
sponsor?
Sponsor the resolution that you handed out.
Excellent. Do we have a second? Joe? Thank you. Okay, so we have a resolution before the committee, resolution amending the budget for the CSEA bargaining unit contract. And everybody has seen the MOA, the Memorandum of Agreement. Is there any further questions? Legislator Quackenbush.
I see a resolution
Mm-hmm.
that talks about the appropriations.
Yes.
And it says that the Montgomery County Legislature hereby endorses the terms of the agreement. I believe the terms should be in the resolution, not just the monetary value. That's my own personal opinion, that the terms should be attached to it. So we're also saying we not just endorse it, I believe it's an act that needs to happen by the legislature. Because it's a collective bargaining agreement. So we're not just endorsing it, we're passing it.
Okay, so not just the background, not just the broad strokes, the whole contract.
Sure, I mean, the monetary needs to be in there, but I think that we need to realize that we as a board, it's a collective bargaining agreement with future implications. And it needs to be, I believe, passed in its entirety by us. And I don't think that it should just say it endorses, I don't know, what's the word, Doug? Agrees to. We're part of, the county executive is the employer that negotiates In cases with the sheriff's department, the sheriff is a co-employer. They can't just do it on their own. They need the proper legislation, as Civil Service 204A tells us, which is in the CSEA agreement, and it says it's agreed by and between the parties that any provisions of this agreement requiring legislative action, which obviously the money does, to be permitted its implementation by law, be provided, and additional funds therefore should not become effective until the appropriate legislative body has given approval.
I think the word approval would probably be better than the word endorses.
Okay.
Approves, rather.
I agree with it. The only comment I would make that I think is missing, and I don't know, I believe you told me that there was some discussion, but there was a arbitration prior to you folks coming on board, just last year, that was kind of, had a mixed result. Mostly in favor of the county, but also in favor of the CSEA. And there's no place in this agreement, or at least in the MOU, or the MOA, that reflects that. And I believe that it should be indicated within the agreement, because it's very important that boards, and future county executives know that there was. Now, do we have to have it? Maybe not, because it's been awarded in arbitration. We can always go back to the case. But my personal opinion is that should be reflected in there.
I think this is where sometimes history can be beneficial, because we were both aware of this arbitration, and it was discussed at length during the negotiations. So if you want to go into executive session, we can do that.
The arbitration is public. I don't think you need executive session because it's public knowledge. And it's
Okay.
been awarded, it's public. I think we would probably be
Better to, okay.
open and
Matt, what do you feel about? It was just,
I'm not sure exactly what part of it you're talking about.
well, for instance, there was an arbitration in which the CSEA filed an arbitration against the county, and it was in regards to what happens when the county office buildings close down. And at that time, there was 2006, I was chairman. In 2011, it happened again. 2006, we paid everybody when they didn't come to work. 2011, the arbitrator's case said, no, you can't do that. You can't. And the question was, they would have to use their vacation or personal time. The part that the CSEA won was, I said at one time, they said that I said that the sick time couldn't be used. And I never said that sick time couldn't be used. I just said that you may have to provide a doctor's note if you use your sick time, because that's what your contract says. And the arbitrator agreed with them and said they could use sick time as well as the others. No place in here does it reflect that. I just don't want to revisit it in the future.
Yeah, no, that was definitely something that we addressed. I would like to have it in front of me rather than speaking off the top of my head about something that we finished up a few weeks ago. But we did find a resolution to that, and we can talk about that maybe tomorrow. I can provide you the language.
The reason I say it is we did, at the time, we had a 24/7 operation at the nursing home, and we still have a 24/7 operation at the jail. And those folks still had to come in every day and didn't receive any extra compensation, and a grievance was filed on their behalf. And I just don't want to revisit that. We've got what's water over the dam, but you know, it goes years from now, people forget.
Well, and just to share a brief personal story, on my first day in office, we had a major snowstorm, and I was handed that file, which was about this thick. And then I subsequently emailed all the department heads and said that we will not be closing the buildings, but if employees would like to use their own time, if they don't feel comfortable coming to work, that would okay. And that was sufficient for the time being until it was resolved in negotiations. But before, I don't want to speak publicly and get the language wrong. I'd be happy to give that to you when I have it in front of me. I just don't have that in front of me.
And I'm not asking for us to go back to the CSEA and have them do a revote or anything like that. Not trying to, but it needs to be known that that arbitration case was out there. And could easily be implemented into the language.
I think that even being a part of this, I don't foresee this as a problem at all. So I think that that can be ironed out very quickly and seamlessly.
Maybe Doug can offer some, I mean, do you agree? Cost everybody a lot of money, went to arbitration, had to pay the lawyers, and what the outcome was is what it was, and I don't know how you just overlook that at this point.
It was addressed in the contract, I just don't have the language.
Right, so we can
It was
take care of that.
similar, it was similar to what we were doing, there was, yes, they could use their time, and there was something in there regarding them not using time, but again, I wanna have it in front of me, I don't wanna say it in front of the press where I end up, saying something that's
You're
not.
You're saying that that's in the new contract?
I believe yes, I believe that was an issue that we took care of.
The only thing I would respectfully disagree with is, it's not in the MOU that was signed.
It
If
was,
it's not in the MOU, then it's not in the contract, because that's not what was presented, which has to be presented to the members for ratification, just like it would have to be presented to us. And if it's not in there, it's not in there. They want to have a side letter to do it, or end up putting in, or maybe there's a discussion after, but it's not in what I'm reading.
The issue was the union wanted something in there.
right.
And based on the recommendation of our labor attorney, because of that ruling, he advised that there's no language needed.
They wanted language that would probably,
They wanted
I wasn't in
language-
negotiations, but they probably
They
wanted
wanted
language.
language in there that gave them either time
Right,
or,
well,
but because the county side, Matt and his team, did not agree to giving them additional pay or additional time off when a disaster happens, we were advised by our labor attorneys that no language is needed.
because there's a prior arbitration case.
Exactly.
Right, that they can go back to. What I'm saying is,
And that's the reason that you're not seeing it as part of the MOU.
Exactly.
It's language that's not needed on the county's behalf.
Well,
And like I said, and we can.
here's why it's needed on the county's
clarification from
behalf.
Our labor attorney.
Why it's needed on the county's behalf is because tomorrow, they can file again. They may lose, but it's still gonna cost us money, because we still gotta fight it, and that we're still gonna have to hire allowance to fight it, because that's not included in his scope of the agreement. We will
I
be
guess
back.
My argument would be, we can't put language in that prohibits the union from filing an agreement.
Sure you can. Why can't you? If you list the terms of what you're agreeing on and say it's not grievable because you're not getting paid for that, why couldn't you? You could list anything you want. We can't force them to, they have to agree to it. I agree with you, you can't just put it in there. It's gotta be agreed upon. All I'm saying is both parties should recognize it happened. There shouldn't be a problem with reflecting it in the contract.
I think,
Well, I think we both sides sat down, and that's ultimately, it's coming back to me a little bit. If I would have known this was going to be an issue tonight, I would have done my homework on it, but it was at the negotiating table, both sides talked about it, we came to an understanding. Now that we're talking about it, now, yes, maybe it wasn't in the contract, but we know what the procedure is going to be moving forward, and I'm going to be coming out with in May some interpretations of the contract, not just on this issue, but a whole host of issues as it relates to time and attendance and some other, matters that are open to interpretation.
As long as your policies don't conflict with the collective bargaining agreement, you're okay. But if your policies do, and if it's their interpretation that they do, we are back at arbitration. And we are back at paying the lawyers money to defend us.
okay, Martin?
I want to thank all of our employees for the service that they provide to the county. I'm still, why's the urgency on this? We just got this past week, this document, the agreement and everything to look at. Why are we proposing to move things to full board without giving due time to actually look at it? I understand it's been signed.
Well, it has to be signed in order to be able to go and be voted on for the CSA. And this has been a long time coming. Did you
Well,
need?
it's been a long time coming, but when did our office receive this?
Did you need more time? Is there some questions that you need? I mean, I know that I've been available, and I know that the county executive,
I would just like time to review it before making recommendations to move it.
well,
I think it's a great agreement.
I think it's a
want to
great
move forward and
agreement.
pass the agreement. It's great for the employees. I have no issue with that. I have the issue with leaving the door open of something we've already shut the door on.
And I absolutely hear you. I think that time to review definitely has merit, but there's been a lot of time on this case. So just having time to review, if there's something.
There's been a lot of time on it, how come we're just getting it now? If there's been a lot of time spent on it, wouldn't
Go ahead. Yes.
May I ask the clerk, do you remember what day this was? I know it was sometime last week that it was put in our mailboxes, I just don't remember what day.
Friday.
Friday.
Okay.
I think we have time between now and the full board to kind of tie up loose ends, ask questions, come to any resolve. And for something like this, if you needed more time, I don't know what that more time would be, but I'd be more than amendable to help you in that. I gave a lot of my time for this negotiation. If there was something that you feel wouldn't be able to be accomplished in that time, I'm definitely willing to listen. No? Okay. Yes, Ryan?
Going back to the first comment from legislator Quackenbush with the attachment, could I suggest the resolved clause of the resolution read that resolve the Montgomery County Legislature hereby authorizes the, and then insert the title memorandum of agreement by and between, et cetera, and then as is hereby attached? Is that something we could attach this right to the resolution?
Authorizes, not
This
approved.
memorandum of agreement?
You can attach the memorandum of agreement to the
In that way,
resolution.
I think that would accomplish what legislator Quackenbush was getting at. In addition to having the further resolved clause that deals with just finances.
I agree with replacing the endorses. One thing I also wanted to recommend while we're all here is, and maybe Sean can elaborate to this, but if you can expand why this has to come from fund balance, because it wasn't in the budget, and we just changed the rules of procedure. So anything has to have a 2/3 vote. So being united as the legislative body. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean. But the money needs to come from fund balance.
That would be, like I said, as you all are aware, the contracts expired at the end of 2012. And in the 2014 budget process, there was no funding put into the budget for contract negotiations. So as these negotiations go forward, not just with CSEA, with the other unions that are going to be negotiated, you'll see resolutions like this come forward to the board for funding of these agreements if and when they're reached.
Yeah.
Sean, is that a common practice throughout the years? Not to put it in the budget?
In the past, I have no respect to the prior board, but it was a weakness of that board. They never planned for something. That they never, how should I say, budgeted for something like this.
But it's kind of odd.
Unless it was the intent of the previous board that they didn't want to give the unions anything. And I believe that was the intent of some of the previous board.
I do have a breakdown of all of the facts and figures to the very small amount, Legislative Kelly, if that would help at all. I mean, I have no problem truly spending a lengthy amount of time going over every small detail. I know that you bring an extreme amount of financial knowledge into this, so if that would be of any assistance, I do value your opinion. So if that would help, or separate from this at any time. Yes,
Number 17,
yes.
the parties agree that the senior account clerk typist in the sheriff's office shall be removed from the bargaining unit. CSEA shall consent to the designation as managerial confidential by per case number, and then it gives it.
Are we reading the contract right now?
I'm reading the MOU,
Oh, okay.
the MOA. My only comment to Doug might be that I believe that has to be done with a petition to the Public Employees Relations Board. If you're going to change the recognition clause of the contract,
This was prepared through your labor attorneys, as is indicated on the transmission page on the cover.
I think what they're saying is
I
they're
don't
agreeing.
disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I think they're agreeing to do it, both parties, but I believe it needs to be done through petition. If it isn't done through petition, I don't know that it's valid.
Well,
Just might want to check on that.
the representatives of the CSEA have agreed, as has the county in the memorandum of agreement, to the terms of it. Well, I would agree it couldn't be forced upon someone. Both sides have signed off on that.
All I'm saying is if the person in the position didn't like it, they might have a valid complaint if it wasn't negotiated and done properly. It may have been negotiated but not petitioned.
Well, I don't want to interfere on the negotiating terms. I don't really think that's, I don't want to be, because I think because I was a part of this team, that's not, I don't want to say if it was or wasn't a factor, but I don't think it's really our place to assert that. And while I appreciate you being kind and considerate towards that employee, maybe it's something
I'm
we
not talking
can.
about the employee, I'm talking about the title. I don't care who the employee is.
It's, well, it's still, the title is a employee. So we could find out more tomorrow. I don't know if that's something we can necessarily come up with.
Just saying, I would ask the question. Have our attorney ask the question of whether or not it needs to be petitioned to the Public Employees Relations Board to change case number, whatever the heck it is, E2560. They had a petition at one time to get the bargaining unit recognized. That's what that number stands for. And when you petition PERB, they authorize it. They also have to authorize any changes to it, which is done through petition. Just saying. I know they're agreeing to it. Both parties are agreeing. I'm just saying that I would probably recommend.
No, I understand, and I don't disagree with you, what you're saying at all. In fact, it's probably a good observation. But I'm not involved in the negotiations. Bill Wallens has submitted this to you. Maybe it's a question for him.
I mean, they are saying CSEA is consenting to the designation. They're consenting to it, but.
Is that a secretary or an attorney? No.
Oh, yeah. Okay, was there anything else? Yes.
Madam Chair, I do want to thank you for all your time that you put in on this. It looks like a fair contract. I just have one thing to say, and I did make my opinion known to the county executive. The county salaries are been running low for a long time here compared to the other counties throughout the state. And I know this seems to be a common practice. The county usually gives a stipend or gives bonuses, and it's put on, and it's not put on the base salary. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why the salaries are staying so low, because they don't get these raises or bonuses or stipends added to their base salaries. So I just wanted to point that out. I would like to see in the future that we start adding this. You know, as a former county employee, I was against it when I was an employee, and I'm against it as a legislator. So that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have to say that the county executive, and not only did include me for a liaison for the legislative body, but was very supportive, and the empathy for the employees was very much there. And from the former Board of Supervisors, it was such a welcome, refreshing change that it was wonderful. And I welcome.
It certainly looks like a fair
It's
contract.
very fair, and they welcomed it, and all of the issues that have been brought up, Chairman Quackenbush, are absolutely appropriate, and I appreciate it. So I think that you recognize all the effort that was put into it, and that's not why you necessarily pointed out different aspects, but I think we'll follow up on them. So, did anybody have anything else? Okay, so the resolution, as we have before, with the first resolve being changed to authorize the MOA terms of agreement, we have a sponsor and a second, would we use that as a typo?
I would consent to the language change.
Good.
Authorize or approves?
Well, at first it was approves, and then it was switched to authorize. I mean, semantics. What do you think? What would you,
I would think approve.
approves the MOA?
Yes,
Is the,
As it-
and I have to say the entire legislative board, are we okay with that? Not just the committee, because we do need 2/3. Approves is better?
Gee, Barbara, I'm not on this committee either.
No, the legislative, but that's why I'm asking the whole legislative board, your assessment.
If I have any comments, I'll make them at the board.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's why I was just asking you now.
Appreciate that.
I would support the committee.
Thank you so much, Duke, I really appreciate that. Okay, all right. So, going forward, our first resolution for the Personnel Committee is the resolution amending the base salary for the Emergency Management Director. We need a sponsor and a second.
I'll sponsor it.
Terry, thank you. I'll second. Anything under discussion? No? Wishes of the committee? Oh, Martin?
Did we vote on the first one?
It wasn't, you know what, we didn't vote on it because it wasn't on it, so I apologize. We can say the wishes of the committee, the Personnel Committee, but the reason why I wasn't doing that is because we need 2/3 at the full board. So we can move it to the full board with just the Personnel Committee. I apologize. So let's go back to the previous resolution for the MOA, for the contract, and the Personnel Committee. Wishes of the committee?
Move it to full board.
Move it to full board. Any? All good? Okay. Moving forward. Resolution amending base salary for the Emergency Management Director. We have a sponsor and a second. Any discussion? Wishes of the committee?
Move forward.
All right.
Or move to full board. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Resolution moved. Next resolution, amending base salary, stop DWI coordinator. We need a sponsor and a second.
sponsor.
Terry? And I'll second that. Any discussion? Okay, wishes of the committee?
Move to full board.
Okay, moving. All right, moving forward. Anything else under other?
We're on a roll now.
I make a
Mark.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second?
Second.
Terry, have a good night.